right, um, and it looks like we're there at time. So I think we're ready to get going. We're very excited to have you join us for today's webinar. Today's presenter is Jonathan Bragg, Director of Mindset Software Products. John brings more than 12 years of experience in SAP technology. As someone who's seen the SAP UX experience evolve from very early versions of SAP GUI to web interface, he's ideally suited to provide instruction on design thinking methodology as well as SAP Fiori and development. John's a prolific speaker, presenting at multiple ASUG events, SAP Insider events, and SAP Sapphire events. He's also a regular contributor to the Mindset blog. John's put together a really great presentation for us today, so without further ado, I'm going to hand things off to John.
Thank you so much, Amy. Thanks for the wonderful introduction. And welcome everyone to today's webinar. We're going to focus a lot today on employee experience and employee experience initiatives within the SAP Fiori landscape. So a lot of the things that we'll talk about have to do with ERP situations and employee experience situations within how we can make better change and better ROI out of some of these initiatives. So some of the things that we're going to talk about is just a little bit about mindset, a little bit about us. We're going to go through what is the exact definition of EX, employee experience. And then we're also going to go through employee experience and how those improvements lead to customer experience. That's the big driver here, is that with happy employees, I have great customer experience as well. Why should we focus on this? It'll be another topic that we hit. And then I wanted to go into some of the steps that we've created. So there are 5 steps, I think, into getting into an EX improvement project and or product in SAP. And we'll go through some of the tools and technologies that we're using here at Mindset, and you guys have the option of using in your SAP environments as well. And then finally, we'll go through a little bit of a case study example of how these things work out in the end, and we'll open it up for Q&A. And hopefully, if there's time, we'll get a little bit of a live demo of some of those feedback tools that we've been using. So without further ado, a little bit about Mindset. I really quickly just wanted to let you guys know, everything Mindset does, and I've been with Mindset for 4.5, almost maybe 5 years now. And really it's focused on that end user. It's focused on the employee, and it's really our commitment to making that technology experience for people in the workplace better than it was before us. So with that, we focus mostly on the SAP platform, and we focus a lot within end user experience, but that's nowhere near to what all we do. So we've kind of divided our practice up into 5 different main areas. And the first area is strategy. So how do I go about choosing SAP S4 options? How do I look at what should I target first in UX advisory? How should I go through my DevOps situations, which maybe some of you joined our DevOps webinar that was just a couple weeks ago. That was very, very well attended. So going from that into the design phase, what can we do with S4 assessments, really seeing where we need to focus on UX in S4. Design thinking workshops. This is a big key of any custom development we were to do, is we want to lead that with design thinking. Next, we get into our implementation practices, which can be anything from one custom developed Fiori application to a full-blown S4 implementation. So very, very skilled SAP experts within our network and within Mindset here internally. From the implementation phase, next really comes the manage area. So this manage area is managed services, helping you to build great COEs and great experiences, and also just SAP experts and the ability to support you in your run phase. And lastly is what I look after as the Director of Software Products. We have a number of software products out there. We have some time today. We'll definitely go through each one of these, but the one we'll focus on today is Voice of the Employee here. And we'll get to that after we go through a lot of the EX research and knowledge and steps that we've put together today. So jumping in, employee experience, what is it? So just a straight Webster Dictionary definition, employee experience is what people will encounter, observe, and go through over the course of their employment at an organization. Nowhere in here does it say SAP, of course. Nowhere in here does it say that this is focused only on people's experience using a system. That's mostly what we're going to focus within today as things that we can control and things that we can change from an IT perspective. But really, if you think about, what you as an employee go through during your employment at a singular organization, that can be anything to how HR programs are run, how benefits are looked after, the leadership of the company and what that messaging is. So it encapsulates not only software, what we're going to talk about, but it's all of these things put together to create a hopefully very meaningful and very great experience for you at your organization. Um, so going into a little bit of really some of the research I was doing is what are other people saying within this space? And I found a lot of infographics here, a lot of articles, and really everything focused into we need to take care of employees. And I think that's no better said than during the current situation right now, right? As people are working from home a lot more, there's a lot more disconnect between organizations and their employees and the work that they need to do. Um, some of the things that I looked at in researching this topic were, how many of organizations are looking after customer experience, and how can I correlate that to people looking after employee experience as well? Sometimes those didn't really correlate 100% together, but every bit of research that was out there pointed to, if I focus on employee experience initiatives first, natively out of that, you are going to gain a customer experience improvement. Happier employees make happier customers. I think that's pretty well known within the industry. I did want to focus on some of the Gartner research here as well. That some we all know that employee experience is very important. Now, who is actually doing it? 46% not meeting expectations in this area, and only 13% actually fully meeting expectations of a full employee experience as measured by a lot of the Gartner statistics that they put together. Um, Starbucks is a bit of a leader in this space, and they're really focused on how they can treat their employees, who in turn treat their customers very well. So I don't think I've personally ever had a terrible experience at a Starbucks, so some of this shows, other than long lines sometimes, but with the advent of mobile ordering and things like that, they can really help employees drive to a better customer experience. So to keep things rolling here, I did want to actually give you guys a little bit of a poll just to see how many of you are also looking at employee experience initiatives or programs. And so I just have a quick question here, and I'll launch the poll here. And let's give you a minute to answer this, but does your company currently have an employee experience program or initiative in place today? And I think these results might match some of the research that we've gone after here in the past, but let's give that another 30 seconds here for people to answer. So it looks like we have a few more coming in. All right, I think we've got most everybody. We'll go ahead and end that poll. And here, I'll just share it out here. So the results of this, let's see, does your company currently have an EX program or initiative? So 45% said yes, that's great. I would love to hear more about some of those experiences to see where you're focusing in those areas, see if we're kind of going against some of the Gartner expectations here or not. No, but planning the next 6 months, a few folks there. no, but planning the next 12 months, another couple there, and then a couple that aren't even thinking of this quite yet. So this may be a good topic to really jump into. So with that, let me stop the Zoom poll here, and we can move on. So a couple other quick statistics from some of my research. According to MIT, they were really looking at how employee experience initiatives or programs really helped corporations overall. And so how do we, I kind of take this as how would I sell this to a board when needing to complete a project or wanting to complete a project for a pain point for employee experience. And the first statistic here is that it almost doubles the customer satisfaction. So if you think of NPS scores and NPS ratings, double is huge, right? If I can double my customer satisfaction just by focusing on employee experience and making my employees happier in the workspace, I think that's going to lead to just a crazy ROI and a great story that you can talk about for your organization. The next point there from MIT's research is there's the possibility of a 25% greater profitability compared to competitors. So it may not be an end increase in revenue by 75% or 100%, but if I increase profitability, so that goes straight to the bottom line, by 25% versus the other people in my field that are not focusing in this area, that's a huge competitive advantage. Just being able to, well, that's using some of that to spend in R&D later to look at different products and services, or how you use that profitability to make sure you stay ahead of those competitors. And lastly here, so Deloitte has written a lot of articles in this area as well, and I do like some of their research in how they go about really measuring other executives and things like that. And they've couple very high level points here are the statistics that I wrote here is 80% of executives say that employee experience is very important to them. However, out of that 80%, only 9% really said, I have a plan, or I know exactly what I'm doing within my employee experience program. I have a program, I have it out there, I have it started, but I may not know how to measure it. I may not know how to really bring it forth to the forefront. So I thought those were pretty interesting and good reasons to really start focusing more within this area. So again, we're a software technology company. We're focused a lot within SAP, the largest ERP software provider, and some of the things I've heard many times, over my user experience career is ERP now definitely needs to have a consumer grade experience. So if I can, go onto the Amazon app and order things in 3 to 4 clicks, if I can use the Starbucks app to get my coffee in the morning, if I can do all those things as a consumer, there's no reason that I need to be forced to use a GUI screen to do my job at work. Um, and some of the reasons for this being even more prevalent now than it was even a year ago is look at organizations and what we've had to do based on some COVID responses. Things is we're not going to the office. We're working from home as much as we possibly can, where we can. And those consumer and corporate brands and minds are blending closer and closer and closer together, right? You may be working on sales orders for your company for a minute, and then during a break, you can make sure you have supplies coming from the grocery store, or looking at a pickup time for those groceries, or ordering some things from Amazon to make sure that you're being safe and being well thought of as during the workday. So as those things blend closer and closer together, there's a larger expectation that ERP software can act in the same way. Be very simple, very easy to use, very lightweight. The ability to approve things on my phone, using mobility for my entire experience. Those things are kind of ingrained into our experiences these days. and it's again even more prevalent than ever. So want to do a quick case study, and I know everybody's eyes go to the right of the screen, and I'm sure there's at least 5 or 10 people on the call saying, "Oh, that's VA03," and there's probably 10 other people on the call going, "What the what is that?" So this example, we've done a couple of these. So the example I wrote up in a blog recently was around a customer service rep, and let's say a customer is calling in for pricing on a product from a sales order. If we're looking at GUI, if we're looking at SAP GUI, and the customer service rep has to jump through a lot of hoops and ask a lot of very detailed questions to the customer in order to get to a very basic piece of information. So in this scenario, the 5 steps that are listed there are only to confirm a price on a material that they already paid for a sales order that was entered. So first of all, you have to identify that customer. Well, in SAP, my customer is my sold to. So my sold to number, I can try to search for their name somewhere here. Let's see, and then once I get to that, I can identify the order by the order number or the order date or some set of other information, maybe by material that they bought. Then 3, once that order comes up, I have to find that material in the order. Some sales orders in my past, there's hundreds and hundreds of line items of materials that they order at once. And then finally, if I find the unit of measure on that material, maybe I didn't order in eaches, maybe I ordered in cases or everything else. And then finally I can confirm pricing either at the each level or the case level or the box or whatever that person was looking for. And so there's a good 5 to maybe even 6 or 7 steps to get to a reasonably quick conversation with a customer who calls in. In this experience, in observing a lot of these situations, customer service reps are on the phone a long time with each customer, and B, the customer on the other end is wondering, gee, why you know who I am? Why do you need to ask these 6 other questions just to validate that I have a price on this material? This was a 10-second conversation that has taken 5 minutes now. So some of the things that we look at and try to innovate on is, okay, what could have happened here? What could some of the things be here? And one of our great developers, Paul Moderman, who's written a lot about UI5 and design, has mocked up a fun little app here. I'll show you. And this is kind of, what if a conversation could go a little bit more like this?
Hi, this is Paul with Industrial Suppliers. I was calling hoping I could get a quick check on some information. Sure, what do you need? I want to find out something from my invoices in August. Okay, I've got them right here. I'm looking for the one that has a total of 73,850. Yeah, I see it. Let's pull up document number 756275. Okay, what are the individual lines? Let's see, there's a conveyor assembly, some lubricant, a shaft drive casing. Yeah, what's the charge for the lubricant? The lubricant is 12,400. Okay, that's what I needed. Thank you. All right, thank you. Have a good day.
So in that scenario, we are using voice technologies against an SAP system to pull up exactly what I need to look at the right time. So if I can listen to what a customer is asking, I can intelligently go into my SAP system and ask it for the things that we're talking about. So using voice and using sales orders and invoices, here we're talking about invoices, we can intelligently go into the backend system and drive that conversation very easily. So instead of a customer service rep focusing on the software experience and knowing how to use SAP GUI through their numerous training sessions, they can focus on the customer and the customer conversation that's happening. You saw it was very quick and it was very easy to get through. So this brings up kind of another question for me in your guys' environments. If we were to look at the types of technologies that you're using within your SAP environments today, I'm curious as to what, if any, net new technologies you're using in SAP today. So we've got a couple of different answers here that you can pick from, whether you're doing anything within the machine learning space in SAP, whether you're looking at robotic process automation in SAP, anything with voice assistants or chatbots, and anything within the IoT space. And so some of the things that SAP is natively trying to do out of the box is IRPA is a big one. Machine learning is also a big one. Now they did have a chat platform, conversational AI, that I don't know how widely people used as far as from an SAP technology standpoint. And then of course IoT, industrial IoT and Industry 4.0, I think is a huge space that's just hitting its stride now. And so let's see, we've got about half the respondents here, and others probably possibly aren't using any of these technologies yet, but still see a couple of answers coming in. So we'll give it another 10 or 15 seconds here. All right, we'll go ahead and end, and I'll share these with you as well. So interesting thing here is IRPA actually leads the way. So it's one of the newer technologies in the SAP landscape, but it's definitely leading the way. And I think perhaps that's due to some of the standard functionality, especially in the finance space, that's coming out for robotic process automation. I can think of the best use case I always go to is, how do I auto close GL accounts at the end of a financial quarter or a finance month? How can I really look at some rules behind it? And IRPA is, to me, a little bit of a buzzword in SAP still, just because these are things coming from the back end. You know these things and you can program for them. So it's kind of like if you have if-then rules based on, okay, I can close this account for the month if it meets these criteria, then that's technically IRPA in this scenario. Interesting that voice assistants and chatbots and IoT are tied here. I'd be curious, maybe in the Q&A session, you can share what you're using voice assistants for. If it's more of a Facebook response on the consumer side, or if it's within SAP itself. If anybody's looking at the cloud versions of HANA and wanting to use Copilot and other technologies like that. And machine learning is last year, which is interesting to me because that was a really, really big topic last year and the year before at a lot of the SAP conferences, is how can I use SAP Cloud Platform to enable machine learning? And it's interesting to see where some of those things either got stuck or continue. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing those, and we'll go ahead and move on. So going through some of those scenarios, some of the research, we're talking about employee experience here and what can we do. So I want to spend a lot of time on these next slides, because this is really the step-by-step approach that I want to walk you through in software, and especially in SAP. What are the steps that I can take to improve employee experience? And so the 5 steps here: measure, score, evaluate, prioritize, and implement, are the exact 5 steps that we're going to walk through in detail. And from here, we'll go through, after these 5 steps, a little bit more on the exact tools that we can use to do this exact approach. So we'll start with measurement. Going into IT programs, going into employee experience programs, you usually have two different representatives, and I have the IT leader here and also the business employee person here, and those goals of those 2 individuals is not always the same, right? The IT leader wants to make sure the system is running, the system is up, it's as efficient as possible, and that people are able to use it. The business employee wants to do their job. They want to make sure that they're able to log in, they're able to do their work as smoothly, fastly, and easy as possible. since those things don't always align, we want to make sure that we're capturing and we're measuring feedback. So to me, the measurement stage here is we need to define what we want to measure. What types of things can we measure to look at employee experience? Um, and this takes agreement. So this takes different levels of the organization. Whether it's IT, business, at the employee level or leadership level. Um, this is exactly what we want to get feedback on. And then we need to solicit that feedback. So in order to measure something, we have to capture the information around it. Speaking very much in terms of SAP, we're looking at SAP Fiori. So how do I capture and measure Fiori application usage? And also, how do I prompt people for feedback? Whether I can have them leave comments or have them write an application. Another guiding principle of this step is that in order for end users and employees to use this, it has to be very quick and very unobtrusive to their day-to-day work. So that's measurement. Scoring is the next piece. So now that I know that I can measure things and I know what I want to measure, I now need to capture that measurement. I need to store it. I need to store it long term so I can look at the analytics of this. So there's a lot of different types of rating scales out there, and I can tell you soon what we used in some of the things that we've developed. But there's obviously a net promoter score. There's customer satisfaction surveys and customer satisfaction materials. There's whether I should use icons or numbers to represent our scale. Am I on a happy to sad scale or a 1 to 10 scale? And then when I boil this down, am I looking at translating these numbers from 1 to 5 or 1 to 10, or what makes the most sense in each of these areas? And there's really no right or wrong answer, and it depends on how your organization wants to see this. I can tell you my mindset overall is very focused on net promoter score. We take customer satisfaction and NPS very seriously, and we focus on ways to create the high numbers within that space and maintain that based on our own internal customer feedback. The next piece of this, after we know what a rating scale we want to go for is, and we're actually capturing that, is the long-term storage of this. So SAP, we can pretty much do whatever we want for storage. We can create a custom table. We can look at usage tables that are already there within SAP, but we need to also focus on trends. So we don't want to store a ton of information that is going to slow down a database. Not as big of a worry these days with S/4HANA, but we still need to focus on making sure that we're just not collecting every single small piece of usage statistics that we can, only to maybe look at it. So we want to focus on trends. We want to focus on trends over time. So maybe we have an application that ranked really low. Over time, we've done some EX improvement programs and EX projects to improve that, and we can look at how that score has increased over the last 6 months. If we only had 2 weeks of data, then it's something that we can't really look at all the different trending for. Next, once you start to improve, you really want to rescore, remeasure to be able to prove the ROI and the value of what you've been doing. So every one of these steps is circular, right? Once we improve something, we need to remeasure, we need to rescore things, we need to make sure we're in that same base measurement that we can really compare and contrast applications against like applications for end user groups. So that was scoring. The next one's evaluation. So this really is the key to this, right? I have all of these scores. I've measured all the applications and what people use in SAP Fiori, and now I need to look at how do I evaluate? How do I use scoring to evaluate applications against each other? If I'm using just a baseline 1 through 5 score or 1 through 10 score, then I can measure things pretty easily against each other. If one app scores a 1 and the other one scores a 10, I obviously know where I need to improve. Um, the bigger part of the evaluation phase here is creating a diverse team to talk about these things. What are our real pain points, and where do we need to focus investment first, second, last? Um, another part of this phase of evaluation is maybe I'm looking at end users and I need more real feedback. Maybe most of them only provided a score. Maybe they didn't provide comments. So in some of the tools that are out there, we can actually see usernames. We can actually see ratings by user. And when I can do this, I can proactively reach out to those folks that gave me comments, say, hey, we're listening to you. We have your feedback. I'd love to hear more, and actually go watch and observe and get more and more real feedback from those folks to evaluate even further how big of an issue or how big of a problem this might be. Next is prioritization. Nothing about rocket science about this. It's really, what is the list of priorities that I have to go after within an EX program? So there's a lot of ways to do this. Most of it I like to do based on scoring first and comments later. So if people are taking the 5 seconds out of the day to do a gut reaction of how they feel with the application they're using, and it's poor, that's a focus point. So when we do these programs, when we do these projects, put in the slide here, solving for painful employee situations will lead to that ROI. A lot of people ask, and maybe this will be a question at the end that we can dig further into, is, how do I prove that by doing this project, we're actually going to see a return, or this program is going to pay for itself in the long run? And we'll and we'll get to that in a couple of later slides here too. The last one is implement. So the implementation step is exactly what it sounds. So we want to treat employee experience as a product overall. This is not a singular project. It does not have an end. It's something that we're doing as a lasting program to make sure that we have a process in place to improve employee experience from end users. So end users' eyes, employees' eyes, we need to make them feel better about the software they use at work. And there's sometimes some misses in how ERP software treats those situations. Those misses are usually because as SAP is a very large software provider for running anyone's business, it's not always focused. It's not always focused into how you want to run your business. And there's different things that can come out of how you need to look at those types of problems and or pain that might be causing your employees. The very first step of what we do once we have a lot of this information is use design thinking. If we know that we have a priority and we have a budget, we have an EX program that's focused on improvement, our priority number one needs to be focused on, and it needs to start with a design thinking workshop. The second part of that is inviting the right people to that workshop, which is real end users. Those people that gave you the worst feedback should be the first people you invite to those sessions. We want to make sure that we're hashing out all of the pain that people are feeling in those different process areas. The second piece of this is, IT people will be in the room, leadership will be in the room, end users will be in the room. The second biggest piece of this is you need to listen. Listening is 100% of the key of design thinking. If IT folks and leadership folks say, well, this is how the process was designed to work and how you should be using it, your design thinking session has failed, because you want to hear from real employees on how and why they're experiencing the pain that made you focus on this employee experience improvement project. And going through that, you've probably heard us talk a lot about design thinking in the past, but we go through and we prototype and we test and we see if the improvements that we're trying to put out there are actually going to make a difference. And from there, that turns into an individual project as a part of this program and part of this product. So we implement to improve. Once we do that, We then have a deliverable of improved software that we can again remeasure and watch over time, and trending over time we can see that user improvement is either on the rise or maybe not as much, and maybe we focused on the wrong thing first. But it's a evolutionary type process. So those are the 5 steps. I want to talk a tiny bit about a case study of where these things actually happen. So a lot of our projects at Mindset come from customers that already know where their pain points are. When customers know exactly what their pain point is, there's a design thinking workshop. There may be some custom development, or maybe it doesn't need custom development. And then there's a go live, a release, and people using a system. In the case of this field service tool that we created, we got a pain point from a customer. That pain point was, hey, my mobile service technicians just cannot use the tool that we have in-house during their day out in the field. So their pain was, I need to get through a work order. I need to get through ordering parts. I can't do that while I'm on site at a customer because I need my laptop, I need it to boot up, I need to log into the SAP system, and I need to get to the right places. And I don't have 30 minutes to spend in an office to try to do that while I'm talking to the owner of that office or the person I'm doing service for. So going through design thinking, going through development, and actually deploying something that was very SAP Fiori based and could follow the process, the end-to-end process of how a person actually works in the field. These are the types of things that came out from employees. So the quotes you see here on the screen are 100% real. This is a case study that we did with Patterson and talked about with their Patterson technical service department. And the great thing about being on these projects is as a consultant, you know, as myself looking in and seeing how these people are actually using this in the field and being able to compare that to what they did before. Seeing these quotes is the biggest thing that warms my heart at the end of the day. The next biggest thing is how can we prove that this had the impact that it does? You know, you can see from the people that they love it, but from a business standpoint, how do I figure out that this was something that I wanted to actually work on? And that's, you know, again, that measurement piece. So the things that were measured within this project is how much time. So they were using SAP CRM to go through some work orders and customer service technician fields and screens. And the average amount of time spent over 3 scenarios was between 3 and 5 minutes for the most part. So that's this left-hand graphic where they spend 4.5 to 5 minutes usually going through a fairly easy scenario in their service day-to-day. Using the new tool set, that's cut either in half or in a very, very much improved state. So time is of the essence, especially for people in service, especially for people on the road all day long. That can translate to a huge savings. The next one we looked at was number of clicks. So these are more productivity improvements. The number of clicks in these scenarios went drastically down. So the first scenario was 63 originally down to 23, or 76 down to 34, 44 down to 15. These were 3 different scenarios that were looked at from start to finish. And the interesting thing here is not maybe in the time savings for each technician or in the click savings for each technician, but it's over here on the right where they actually calculated afterwards of if we saved each technician 1 minute during their day, and that would translate to a business savings of $100,000 for the year. So that's one savings, and here you can see we're saving 2 or 3 minutes per scenario. So that adds up. That adds up quickly. The next piece is post go live. So they have open orders in the system. Open orders that hadn't been closed in 60 days or more. went from 12,000 in CRM, just because it was so hard to figure out how I need to successfully close an order, down to 4,000. So that's not now at the employee level, but because the experience was easier to close out orders, that's going to translate into $1.3 million in annual revenue with those orders closed and that revenue actually captured. That's insanely huge, and that's great. So that's just one case study of a number that that we can talk about. And what I wanted to transform to now is we can see if we can get into a little bit of a live demo. I do want to save some time for questions, so we'll take maybe 10 minutes and try to go through a quick live demo of our Voice of the Employee tool set here. And you know, if we can get this to work quick, then we can do that. Otherwise, I can walk you through the slide here. But basically, what we've done is needing to log back in. What we've done is on our Fiori Launchpad. So these are the applications that that we've built in the software team, and we have our Voice of the Employee application, Safe Transport applications for the SAP TM space, and then also our Fiori App Analyzer suite. So what we can do in any single one of these apps, let's say I'm a clerk and I've been using the Safe Transport application, let's say. I'm in and I'm looking at different people I need to check in or check out of my warehouse. And I am going through my experience, and I can either automatically, so we pop this up automatically every, let's say, almost 10 times someone comes into an application. But this little icon up here in Fiori Launchpad, it persists through any application that you're in, is a feedback mechanism. It's very simple, very quick. When it pops up, all you need to do is select one of the icons. So in this case, in that scoring mechanism that we talked about, I'm scoring on a 1 to 5 basis, where I can say a 1 is this is probably the worst screen I've ever seen in my life, to 5, which is I can't think of anything that could possibly be better about the experience I just went through. So let's say I'm pretty happy. It's pretty easy to go through. I can simply, you know, hit the smiley face and click submit, or if I want to, I can leave a comment. So I can leave any type of comment I want up to 128 characters. And then once I do that, it's gone. I can continue with my experience. It didn't take me any more than 5 seconds, and I can continue on with my day. But on the back end side of that, I have just gotten very detailed information about how somebody is using this app and what they think about it. So what we do on the backend side of this is called VOE. So this is our Voice of the Employee experience. So let me see if I'm still in this one here. And this is our Fiori App Analyzer suite that tells us exactly who's in the system at what time and how many applications have been viewed by what device type and what browser type and what's loading in at each time. But what we're interested in today is our Voice of the Employee experience statistic. So you saw my rating scale was 1 to 5. On the App Analyzer here, we're looking at an average score of 3 over our entire SAP system. This tracks every single time that someone actually submits a score. So this is the average of every single application being rated in the system overall. So my average experience score for SAP, this includes standard Fiori apps. This includes application tiles that are connected to GUI T codes in the backend. Basically, anything you can configure on a tile in your Launchpad is able to be scored by this tool. But if I click into the binoculars here, I can see, let's see if this loads here. I can see detailed feedback. I might need to relaunch. And so while that's loading again here, I'll go back to the presentation quick so you can just see the, basically, I will present this back just for a second. So you can see in the Voice of the Employee application itself, I have an average rating by application. So I know it's small to see in this view, in this screenshot, but my accounts payable overview, my create billing documents, oh, what's down here, a score of 1 is my warehouse monitor. And I believe it based on the transactional nature of the warehouse monitor. So that got scored a number 1, and it's very easy to see right off the bat exactly where I need to focus. I think my number 1 priority when I prioritize is the warehouse monitor. Number 2, maybe we can have a discussion of whether that's pick by cart or create billing documents. You know, what will make the most impact the best. The other thing that I can look at, sorry, let me make this one a little bit bigger now. So the other thing I can switch over to is the table of data. So we're not capturing much information. We're capturing the application name, the rating that you gave it, any comments that were submitted along with it, and then the user. So what the user does for us is we can actually switch the chart view over to ratings by user. So you can see Bragg here. You know, he's pretty positive about absolutely everything in SAP, so he ranked it a 5. And I may be slightly biased. Now, our EWM user or our sales and distribution user, they have a bit of a mixed experience and they rated it a 3. So we can kind of see where our overall rating of 3 came from the users that are actually submitting feedback. And so I can reach out, you know, whoever this S4 HEWM user is, they probably have an email address attached to them in SAP. I can proactively reach out to them as an IT department and say, hey, I saw that you rated some applications. So the applications that you rated, let's see, EWM demo, were the feedback detail screens, the general ledger, the warehouse monitor would probably be one of them in that space, and you rated them fairly low. I'd love to invite you to a session to get your feedback overall on this. And so what does that do? That makes the employee feel like they're being listened to, and B, they're using their feedback to drive enhancements and improvements. So what we've seen by doing design thinking sessions, especially in this space as we go after pain points like this, is that those users that were involved in design thinking bring back their experience to the rest of their teams, and they say, hey, they actually listened to us, they came through, and we had a great conversation between IT and the business, and they heard our thoughts, we designed this solution together, I'm really on board with it, and that in itself sells the solution and will make it successful once it goes live. Those people join in design thinking, they're bought in because it's their feedback pushing this initiative, and that makes, to me, 100% of the difference in how a project actually goes. So let's see, a couple minutes here. Let's see if we can get that loaded so I can show it live. And then, there we go. In just a few quick minutes here, I'll kind of show you some of the functionality. So this is that same screenshot we saw, warehouse monitor being 1. We can quickly switch over to the table view to look at our comments. We can, if I'm looking for sales apps, I can filter down on that very easily. This is all just, smart table functionality in SAP Fiori. And if I want to as well, let's see, I can switch to user. Let me switch back to the graph. And now I can see some of the people that have been in here rating applications that I can reach out to. Another thing I can do within the application is I can see, okay, create billing documents. I click on that specifically, switch to the chart view. I can see exactly who rated that to reach out to. If I want to go back to everything, I can refresh the table here and get back to all of my comments and all of the things that I want to look at. So with that, we did want to save 10 or so minutes of questions, and then if we have any extra time for there, we can talk through any of the other applications we go through. But kind of a last call here is really, if you're interested in employee experience overall and want to talk more about how to measure ROI, how to really get into the project mindset, really look at how these things can improve overall, you can reach out to myself. We have a lot of case studies and doing exactly this, as well as the application that you saw. So you saw the voice of the employee application here at the end, where we can really start tracking who's using what in SAP Fiori, and really drive some of those pain points to completion. So yeah, with that, I think I will hand it over quickly back to Amy, who we can start to go through some questions for Q&A. Thank you so
Great.
much.
Oh, great, John. I think the first question is, are push notifications to mobile devices part of the standard Fiori 2.0 delivery from SAP?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I think let's see, Nazir asked that. So push notifications to mobile devices, we can do that. Are they standard configured out of the box? Not usually. And I say not usually because a lot of those notifications are going to your Fiori Launchpad notifications window. That Fiori Launchpad window is connected to the SAP Fiori mobile client. A lot of times that mobile client, especially on a mobile device itself, we're talking about here, that mobile device looks at the application. So if you are using the SAP mobile client, you still have to click on that and open that application to be able to see your notifications. Now there is a way through SAP Cloud Platform Services, through mobile services, that's the service that it's called, to actually configure that to push mobile notifications to a phone. The other way to do this is to create your own custom mobile app, a native mobile app that will push notifications to the phone for that functionality. So there's a couple different ways to do it, but it is not that I've seen been implemented as standard out of the box functionality where you can where you can do that. We actually did this for a couple of clients and thought about turning it into a software product that people could sign up for and install in their initiatives. So if there is an interest in that, feel free to reach out. We can talk a little bit more about that one specifically.
Great, thank you, John. Next question. Have you found most organizations you work with willing to work only on employee experience versus more tangible ROI projects?
Yeah, this is a really good question because a lot of the projects that we work on with organizations, business leadership is going to look for a very tangible ROI of why we should do this, right? There's hundreds and hundreds of projects that IT organizations want to complete year over year, and they need some way of prioritizing those. So if I can say that, hey, if we do this, we save people an average of X amount of time and X amount of dollars, that's now a really tangible business case. Or perhaps employee experience wise, we're getting some reviews that some of the, maybe it's HR functionality, a lot of the self-service HR functions are a good example of every employee using SAP for something. PO approval and PR approvals is another good one. In these areas, you can see that if this affects the entire employee population, that might be a big enough priority to work on for EX for that project to get approved. But yeah, from what we saw and what we've helped people build business cases around to implement these programs, we need to measure again and score things so that we can come up with that tangible ROI that will come out of the project, that will get the project approved. And then we can really focus in on, okay, let's design this for the employee. Focus on the employee. That will bring their experience score up and will translate to you into that ROI.
Oh, great. Thank you, John. Sorry, I was muted. Last question. How can I get the voice of the employee application in our Fiori environment?
Yeah, excellent. So yeah, if you like what you saw within the voice of the employee application, a couple ways you can do this. You can reach out directly to me. There is a download and install package that we work with, and or we can install this in SAP Cloud Platform. So a couple ways that it can be deployed and actually measured. There is one custom table that gets imported with this. So it's measuring those 4 or 5 fields that we showed. So the biggest point there is, reach out to me directly, and we'll work to get it installed in your environment. The other possibility there is any of the other applications that we're looking at too. So if you have questions about anything else we're focused on in the software space, reach out directly to me. One of the things we're very focused on right now is the warehouse manager role and real-time analytics dashboard. So we're in actually some customer feedback sessions currently on that piece of software. So if you're interested and you run EWM or WM within your environment and would like to be a part of a customer feedback program, please let me know and we'll get you included in that, and that will be part of an early adopter program for our EWM toolset.
Awesome. That's the end of our questions at the moment. So
Excellent.
I think we're finished, actually. Thank you very much to everybody who joined us today. We will have the recording of this webinar on our YouTube channel shortly, so please watch for that if you want to review anything again. And please be sure to reach out to John or myself if you'd like to schedule any time with us. Thanks again for joining us.
Thank you all.